Hello and welcome once again to the Smart Money, Dumb Money Show. I'm your host as usual, Keith Richards. I'm President and Chief Portfolio Manager of Value Trend Wealth Management. And today, hot topic, we're going to talk about potential stock sectors and their movements coming into the US elections. Ooh, spicy topic. So we're going to look at where certain sectors may land depending on the potential of either party winning. Now, all of this is really just speculation and conjecture because we don't know who's going to win, and we don't really know how these sectors will react. So this is kind of theoretical, if you will, but it's a fun exercise, and it's certainly something that we should keep in mind as the US election results become more and more clear. And as you're about to see on the PowerPoint that I am going to put up, that the election polls and the betting are pretty much neck and neck right now. There was a clear win for the Republican side just a month ago, and now they're closer to dead heat, with all the other independents and whatnot are very, very, very distant losers. So let's share the screen, and we're going to look at the Trump versus Biden sectors to watch as the election approaches, which is November of this year, 2024. I'm recording this late April of 24. So generally speaking, and these are, again, generalizations that you can't take as absolutes. These are just thoughts that I put together from my own musings and from stuff that I have been researching through different research analysts and whatnot. So Trump is thought to be a little bit more friendly towards the healthcare companies, less regulatory, less restricting. So that could be a positive thing for those companies. We'll look at them in a minute. Generally speaking, he's also a believer in laissez-faire capitalism, as am I, but more free market. But there are exceptions with that, and certainly this comes into the tech space, and that is there's certain companies that are going to be less focused on U.S. soil, and some companies that are really sending more business overseas, that kind of thing. He's pretty protectionist as a president, as I recall from the last time. There's definitely going to be less energy restrictions. And I would even say, though, that even under a Biden administration, even though the Biden administration is very pro-green and all that stuff, I think that the problem is the reality behind some of the restrictions imposed by the green movement and the lack of reality. And you've seen me cover this on past videos and past blogs, and that is our need for electrical power over the next 5 or 6 years is going to literally grow by 500%, and that's not going to happen with the pace that we're doing with green energy. So there's going to have to be intervention with probably reopening some of the taps, so to speak, on oil, gas production and whatnot. But either way, in the longer run, Trump is going to be a little bit less restrictive on the traditional energy sources. And I also think that there's a possibility that when it comes to the loaning facilities, this is just a thought bubble that I was reading on one of the research pieces that I receive as a portfolio manager. We buy a lot of very expensive research, and they were speculating on the possibility of the privatization of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You guys may be familiar with those two companies, the federal backed mortgage corporations. So there's possibility under Trump of privatization of those firms. And the last thing is military. Now, often people think, well, Trump is very positive to the military, but really it's kind of a toss-up, because he may pull support away from the Ukraine movement, but then he may up the onshore defense side for the US itself, and that may be vice versa for Biden. So those are some of the things I've been looking at, and we'll talk about in a second. But with Biden, we're going to get more healthcare regulation, and that is certainly something to be concerned about if you're buying into that sector. More tech regulation, definitely more traditional carbon-based energy restrictions until reality hits, I guess, has been my case for a while, and that is that we need to bridge the gap. But nevertheless, longer term, you'll see that. Definitely an EV, electrical vehicle, and this kind of thing focus, the solar focus for homes and other industrial applications. Rare earth, which is the minerals required to build a lot of these batteries and all that stuff. And as I said, the military side is kind of a toss-up between, home defense and helping countries offshore. So this is not a poll. This is a betting average. So the people that are out there, you can bet on anything these days. It's really amazing. This is RCP betting average on who's going to win. You can see it's basically a dead heat. The red is Trump, meaning Republican, and the blue being a Biden or Democrat. And you could see that the overall trend had been more positive for the Republicans, but what you're seeing is a fairly recent strong move on the betting side, not in the polls, towards Biden. And they've literally come together. You can see here at the top, Biden at 42.5, Trump at 42. It's effectively the same. So it's kind of a dead heat right now from the betting perspective, not from the polls. So I'm going to get you to take a look at now a bunch of charts. We're going to rip through these because really we're speculating on what's going to happen in November or coming into November or just after November. And so a lot of these charts can change depending on who gets elected. But this is the recent breakout. I have talked about this on a recent video and on blogs, that the healthcare sector, XLV, which is the ETF, the XLV ETF in the US, it broke out. It's pulling back to the neckline. I like the look of that. A lot could change, though, depending on who gets elected. But I just thought I'd pull this chart up. It's a relatively bullish chart. Okay, Trump bullish as well. Certain tech stocks. So Intel does a lot of work on American soil. And so that's considered a more pro-American approach to buying into some of the chips and the technology side versus other companies. Another company, believe it or not, is Taiwan Semiconductor, and is the reason why there were some diplomats that went over to Taiwan recently, and there is concern over China's grumbling about Taiwan, because Taiwan actually is bringing a lot of the business side to the US. They're investing in the US in plants and technology. So the Taiwan Semiconductor is actually a pro-US stock. Trump is bullish on any company, whether they're US or international, that wants to bring business to US soil. So on the other side, Trump is very much against left biased technology firms, the social media firms, and probably the king of them all is Facebook, Meta. And he's also, as I said, against exporting business to the US. And that's certainly what NVIDIA has been doing. So that could really hurt NVIDIA if Trump is elected. So there's certain firms that would benefit and certain firms that would not. It will not, I should say. It's not an absolute to say tech will benefit or not with either president. Trump is definitely bullish for oil and gas. And I think, as I said, in the meantime, I think no matter what, reality is going to hit even the most extremist, left-wing individuals or green movement politicians, because there is a gap that needs to be filled. But if we're looking sort of the way the market might take it, which the market thinks short-term all the time, it's fairly myopic, it would be bullish for oil and bullish for gas, or at least more bullish for both of those if Trump got elected. My thoughts on both of these, but I'm kind of interested in natural gas right now. Actually, you can see on the chart just as I speak, it's done a little gap out of a bit of a consolidation. So I think the case is growing there. for a clean alternative to bridging that gap. But anyways, that was another video I did. You can look into that. Party neutral is military. Again, Ukraine versus homeland. So these are some of the larger military orientated firms out there. And there's really not a lot of edge you can have by guessing who's going to win. Biden, as we mentioned, is bullish on the electric vehicle movement. So that's obviously okay for Tesla. And these are all concepts based on company neutral. In other words, Tesla can do a good job or a bad job from an earnings perspective, and that changes everything. But just as a generalization, Tesla would benefit if Biden gets in. Interestingly, Elon Musk is actually a kind of a converted Democrat over to being more of a Republican. That's kind of interesting because he's also a big believer in free speech and laissez-faire capitalism. Whatever the case, so there's also this. I got to look down here because Charging Point is the name of the company, and they've been in the hole because EVs generally have not been received well throughout North America and even in Europe. They're really not what everybody says they are, but that technology could change, and so Charging Point could increase earnings as people start to accept maybe a better built EV in the future. And one that could withstand winters, for example. And that means that these guys with their charging port technology would benefit. Okay, Biden's also in favor of solar power. So a couple of solar power companies. I have to look down again because I'm not. One is called First Solar and the other one's called Interphase. So both of these are in that area, and that should be bullish for solar. Hasn't been so far. There is the rare earth thing, and I think this actually isn't a bad play because no matter what, the green energy movement will come, even if it doesn't come in the next 5 years. And that's always been my argument. I think everything's going to be more environmentally friendly, but it's just we can't do it as quickly as everybody thinks. So in the long run, the platinum, palladium, these are some companies that are involved, or the chart itself for platinum on the left. These are companies to keep in mind. And of course, you can even just buy an ETF for rare earth minerals. It kind of bunches them all into one group. Notice I didn't put uranium in there because it's not rare earth, but it's definitely going to be something that is going to be a bridge again. And in fact, a long-term green energy power. So I am long-term bullish uranium, but I've talked about that too much in my blogs and videos, so I decided not to talk about that today. So there's some ideas for you. I hope those ideas help. It's really just food for thought, this video. It's not really some actionable ideas because you don't know how the election is going to turn out. We don't know, even if these sectors will react in the way I'm thinking about it. It's really just conjecture at this point. So I hope that's of some interest to you and food for thought, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.